Hi, John here. Coming back with another video. I'd like to talk about buying fuel. So, what's another big expense when people own a car? And that's buying fuel for your car. Whether you own a diesel, you own a hybrid, you own a gasoline car, regardless, you have to buy fuel. The other problem with buying fuel is if you own a diesel, you have to buy AdBlue or Urea in order to run the diesel. So, you have an extra expense when you own a diesel in these days because of the EPA. For whatever reason, they put that on the diesel cars when in the past diesels were the most efficient cars. They burned half the fuel that gasoline cars burned and got 1/3 to almost a half more fuel economy than the gas cars did. So diesels tend to burn almost half as much the distance as a gasoline car with half the fuel. So if you get like the old Jettas would go 720 miles on 16 gallons or 13 gallons, 16 gallons versus a gasoline car that would only go 400 miles without AdBlue, and there was no problem with emissions. All of a sudden now, the EPA is forcing diesels to have these AdBlue tanks in their cars, and all that does is just create more pollution because now you need factories to produce AdBlue. You got to make all these bottles. People don't dispose of them properly. The dealers probably don't dispose of them properly. It spills on the ground. It's just worse. They might as well just do away with diesels because in the United States, diesels are not something that is considered favorable. Let's just say. I mean, it's just that people are, the EPA, all these manufacturers are against diesel. So what the way everybody wants to go is like with the electric cars, with electric hybrids and all that. Like if you look on YouTube, Volvo has an electric hybrid diesel in Sweden that gets 100 miles to the gallon, and it's an SUV. And you could drive it either on diesel, you could drive it in electric mode, or you can drive it in hybrid, and that's how you get 100 miles per gallon. So that's pretty good. I mean, there's no cars in the United States that can get 100 miles to the gallon, and be an SUV. I mean, that's just unheard of. But in Sweden, if you go to Sweden and you want to drive 100 mile per hour SUV, you can go ahead and do it. Diesels are, really getting hit. I mean, I used to have a 1998 Mercedes 300 turbo diesel that got 34 miles to the gallon. Yeah, that's a lot. And I wasn't really like a lot of highway driving, where if you did a lot of highway, you probably get like 38 if you were good on the gas and you were hyper mild. But 34 miles to the gallon, and if you saw the size of that engine, I mean, that was a big engine, and an E-Class, that was a big car. I got rear-ended, so they totaled the car, that's why I got rid of it. But I mean, what car then? There wasn't, the only thing you can get that got 34 miles to the gallon in 1998 was a maybe like a Honda Civic HF, like a little tin can, with no weight, no safety, absolutely like terrible. 1.5 liter engine. I mean, that diesel was so fast that the engine was gigantic, and it got excellent fuel economy. And it probably could have did better if it didn't have the EPA bugging the diesel, the Mercedes-Benz, and developing diesel, because they're prohibiting like these car manufacturers to develop diesel cars and diesel engines that are more efficient. They're making them, they're putting like restrictions on them. And probably the thing with Volkswagen, it wasn't because Volkswagen, it's because the EPA is putting such hard restrictions on them that they can't figure out how to burn the fuel cleaner, in a sense. So it actually burns weirder. Where what happened to all the fuel they were burning with the Jettas back in the day when they got 50 miles to the gallon? I had a 2005 Volkswagen Passat that got 38, 39 miles to the gallon. You know, with 16 gallons, you go over like almost 700 miles. That car was clean. You know, that car didn't have knock sensors and all that stuff. All of a sudden now, you know, diesel is no good. You know, where they like that, my little duck. Diesel is no good. So, I mean, that's the bad thing. I mean, the answer to like the fuel crisis would have been diesels. I mean, diesel hybrids. I mean, if Toyota can make a hybrid to go 40 something miles to the gallon, 44, and if they would take a diesel engine, they'd probably get 80 miles to the gallon. Volkswagen, I think, even has a 3-cylinder diesel that gets 80 miles to the gallon, and I think it's made in the United States, but they just can't sell it here for whatever reason. They have to ship it to South America. It just makes absolutely no sense. You know, and all manufacturers make diesel engines. The only places that they don't sell them is here in the United States. The German, you know, diesel is German. I mean, the guy's name is Diesel. He was a German who invented an engine that can run on peanut oil, you know, to help farmers, you know, with their expenses, which is a great thing. And just think, you know, you could run your car on hemp oil if you had a diesel car, right? You could run the car on hemp oil. So just think about it. We can grow fuel like hemp oil, peanut oil, soybean oil, any kind of oil. Diesel can burn any kind of oil. I mean, so what they have to do now is they have to make these diesels with such high pressure in order to get the emissions so clean. And don't forget soot. So clean, like, you know, like gasoline, because gasoline is like a lighter fuel. Diesel's a heavier fuel. So when you burn diesel and you see black soot come out of the tailpipe, it doesn't stay in the atmosphere forever. It eventually comes back down to the ground. The only thing is that eventually builds up. But they eliminated that in the 98 diesel, in the 97 diesel, in the Mercedes 2005, 2006. They designed, that was probably one of the best diesels they ever made. That car took no AdBlue. And then in 98, in 97, in 2007, they had to add AdBlue to that same engine that was clean. It makes no sense. Now, so they took the spare out of the car, added a tank, added more material, more process. So in reality, the EPA is hurting the environment by putting all these restrictions where the Volkswagen Jetta, the 2014, got 55 miles to the gallon on the right driver. Okay, no 4-cylinder engine can accomplish that. Maybe only like a hybrid, but there is nothing out there that can get that. Any 4-cylinder engine today is going to average 28. That's it. There's no way a 4-cylinder engine is going to average 38, 44 miles to the gallon. It's just impossible. So if you take that over a long period of time, they're actually burning less fuel. And now they're trying to make gasoline engines operate like diesels. And I think Mazda has made a breakthrough where, if you read an article on it, they actually invented an engine that can compress the fuel. That's what diesel engines do. So rather than burning the fuel, right, where diesels don't burn fuel, they compress fuel. I think Mazda has invented an engine that GM and all these other companies have been trying to do it, and Mazda finally has a breakthrough. I'm sure they had help, maybe through Ford and other companies they deal with, like maybe Mercedes-Benz. Made a breakthrough where now they're able to compress the fuel, meaning that they're going to need less fuel, because, you know, you have to burn all the fuel that goes into the engine, where what diesels would do is the unburnt fuel would go back into the engine. So it would be like a cycle. That's why diesels got better fuel economy, because you weren't burning, the engine wasn't forced to burn all the fuel with spark plugs. So now Mazda's going to eliminate manufacturing like spark plugs, ignition, coils, all that. They're going to be diesels that run on that are going to compress the fuel versus burning the fuel. So it's going to take very minimal amount of fuel to they're gonna get the engine's gonna get better fuel economy. How that's gonna work out, with lubricating, because you have to lubricate. So diesel's a natural lubricator because there's little oil in it, where gasoline doesn't. So that's probably the hurdles they have to overcome. Is like how they're gonna lubricate the internal combustion, where diesel lubricates the compression part of it, where gasoline doesn't have that that lubrication factor. So Mazda might have worked that out. And the EPA should lay off on manufacturers and get rid of AdBlue, because AdBlue is worse for the environment than not having it. Maybe they could put it in like big trucks, because they burn a lot of fuel. But then again, big trucks, think about it. A big tractor trailer, 80,000 pounds, right? 18 wheeler gets 7 miles to the gallon. That's better than a Ford V10. A Ford V10 or any V10 engine, gasoline, probably gets 10 miles to the gallon, and that's with no cargo. So if you take like a gasoline engine that can't even like imagine a gasoline, there's no way you could design a gasoline engine that can haul 80,000 pounds, including the truck. It's just impossible. And that truck, those Cummins engines that they use, those Volvo engines that they use, get 8 to sometimes 10 miles to the gallon. That's incredible. You're pulling 80,000 pounds. My Subaru is a 6-cylinder, and I'm hauling 3,400 pounds. Then me in it, a little junk that I have, gets 25 miles to the gallon. So diesels are immensely better on fuel. EPA would eliminate AdBlue and allow manufacturers to concentrate on diesels. We'd have better running cars, better fuel economy. We would use less material, which would pollute the environment less. We wouldn't need AdBlue factories. That could be one of the reasons why the EPA did that, because somebody owns a AdBlue factory and they screwed Volkswagen, and it's not Volkswagen's fault. Volkswagen, I commend them. I commend BMW. I commend Mercedes-Benz for sticking behind Mr. Diesel. I think it was Rudolph Diesel. I'm sorry if I messed up his name, but I think, I know it was Diesel. So Mr. Diesel, they stuck behind him because the Germans know that diesel is the way to go. It's cheaper. You could grow it. You don't have to be dependent on pumping oil out of the ground. You don't need that. You don't even need to make engine oil out of oil that you pump out of the ground. You can grow it. It's synthetic now. They can make it. Hemp. There's so many different ways you can extract oil out of olive oil. There's so many different oils. And out of like 1 acre of hemp, you can get 300 gallons of oil from the seeds. We would need a lot of it, but there's ways of doing it. Even like vegetable oil. That you could just make make fuel out of that. So diesel is kind of the answer. You can't put anything in your gasoline car but gasoline. If you own like a 1985 diesel, maybe even up to 1998, because then as they started adding the emissions, the fuel injection got more high pressure, so that was eliminating the ability of putting different oils in your car. So like if you took a 1985 Mercedes diesel, you could put anything in there, vegetable oil, even sometimes oil with fat. But fat would wax up and destroy the fuel injectors because of the fat. It would turn to wax. But if you had like just clean oil that you bought in a supermarket, and I did it with my diesels. Like if you had gasoline, if you had diesel in your car, you could take a gallon of oil and pour it right into your engine. You could burn waste engine oil. So if you clean that in a centrifuge and got all the carbon out of it and cleaned it and got all the metal particles and all the junk out of it, you could put that right in your car and burn it. Mix it up with a little diesel or do like a gasoline mix just to thin it out a little bit, and you could burn that. You could burn. People would put transmission fluid in their engines to clean their as a detergent to clean their injectors in diesels. You know, but diesel could have probably saved a lot of problems because we wouldn't have been so dependent on foreign oil if we would have stuck with the diesel. But the EPA, for whatever reason, they're putting all these restrictions on diesel, and that's why you see, sorry about that. I'm just trying. That's why you see less and less diesels because of the EPA. That's whose fault it is. But diesels are clean. Even though like I said, in '85 they had those they always said those smoky diesels, those clanky diesels. Those cars are still on the road. 500,000-600,000 miles later, they're still out there. They're running. Just that people, they feel funny driving them because of they think like they're polluting the atmosphere, but in reality they're not, because it's a soot. So soot is carbon, and carbon is neutral, so it comes back down to the ground. But if everybody had diesel, then the soot would stay in the atmosphere a little longer, and you would create that that smog. But then again, you get smog with gasoline cars. And they clean them up with catalytic converters, and they did the same thing with diesel. So the '98 diesel burned clean. Nothing came out of that tailpipe. My 1985 Volkswagen Passat 2.0 turbo diesel that got 38 miles to the gallon on the highway, and maybe 40 if I was a little slower on it, was clean. And just to give you an idea, like what kind of fuel economy I got with it, I drove from New Jersey. So I went from my house down in Jackson down to Newark, picked my friends up, and we drove to Boston, drove all around Boston. Now, we have 4 people in the car with luggage, okay? We drove all the way to Boston, came halfway back, and we filled it up. So figure it out. Do the calculation yourself. We averaged 39, almost 40 miles, and we were doing 80, 85 the whole time. It's not like we were doing 60 miles to the gallon. I mean, we wanted to get there. And we're going with traffic. We're not doing 60. We're doing 80, 85. That's fast. So, and we got almost 40 miles to the gallon. Okay, the Jetta wasn't as big as a big car today, like a Camry or an Accord. It was a little smaller, but then all the cars were small back then. And then they made the new Jetta with the diesel, and they had the new Passat with the diesel, and they had to put that AdBlue in it, which in my opinion, ruined the car. Well, this is John. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe.